Thank you so much, Jess, for joining me on the podcast.
Pleasure. I'm so excited to be here.
I know, I'm so excited because I feel like you're always the one interviewing. So it's going to be cool to have you on that side.
I am. I have to say it is, yeah, it's quite different to be on the other side. But yeah, no, I'm really excited to have a good chat.
I thought it would be cool to kind of start off with a Mythbusters session. So things that people expect of Vogue, and I guess you can
Sure.
debunk it. Yeah.
Sure. Go for it. Oh, this sounds fun.
So there are five. So the first one is that the Vogue office has the most epic fashion closet.
Oh my gosh. Yes and no. So we recently moved offices at the beginning of the year. It depends if we're shooting or not. We've got a pretty cool space, but I mean, it all depends what's inside the cupboard, which makes it epic. So if we've got an amazing cover shoot happening, a main fashion, or if we're doing Vogue Brides, for example, that there's lots of tulle, there's lots of gowns, you can go in and have a nosy around. So it is, yeah, it can be epic at times, and then other times it can be completely empty and everything's been sent back. So yeah, but it's not like the Devil Wears Prada. It's kind of a room with racks, but that's every magazine.
Okay, I was expecting, have you seen the bold type?
Of course, I love the bold type.
Oh, I love it too. I was expecting like this awesome room with like a poof, people sit in there. No.
No, no. Racks and lots of clothes, different racks for different editors, which they go through and edit. And the fashion assistants and the fashion team are in and out. It's a lot more, I guess, functional than the bold type. I'll say that.
Yeah. That's pretty sick though that you have people. I didn't realize you shoot in your office. That's so cool.
We don't shoot per se in the office, but the fashion team's always there, and there's always suitcases. Oh, I don't know, just lots and lots of couriers coming in and out. Yeah, it's a full-time job managing the cupboard, which yeah, it is. Lots of logistics and especially like when you're requesting pieces from Paris or Milan or from Asia, like epic. I don't know, a couture piece or something like that. Couture pieces have been known to come in their own massive box. So yeah, it's exciting.
No, that makes sense. Oh, that's so cool though. The next one is goodie bags. So I expect you guys would get such cool goodie bags with like beauty, skincare, fashion. Is that true?
Again, it's sort of yes and no. It depends what department you work in. Remy, our lovely beauty editor, obviously gets sent a lot of beauty packages every single day, and you can ask to have a play or see what the latest, lipstick is that she's been sent in. I don't actually get sent a lot myself because a lot of what I do is behind the scenes, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And also, I came up through the features department. So, in terms of books, I get a lot of books, but I don't get sent free bags, free clothes. Yeah, I think back in the heyday, sort of in the mid 90s to early 2000s, it was a little bit different. That's when I sort of started out. I remember the fashion director at the magazine where I was working getting sent this epic Chanel silver bowling bag, and I had these squeals in the office. But yeah, it's a little bit different these days. And also, I just work behind the scenes. So when I do get sent something, it's a nice little surprise, but it's not something I kind of come to expect from my job.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny because when my sister and I went to Vogue Codes and the goodie bag was so epic.
The goodie bag at Vogue Codes, I have to say, is amazing. I was excited. I mean, we've got amazing sponsors with Vogue Codes, like with Optus and Estee Lauder, getting advanced night repair. But even the Frank Green drink bottles that we do and the coffee cups, like I have all the merch in my kitchen. I love all the Vogue merch, and especially the drink bottle this year was really epic, and notebooks and all that sort of stuff. But I totally agree. I was like, our marketing team have like gone to town and done such a good job because, yeah, I thought it was great.
Oh my gosh, it was so good. We felt like Christmas coming home opening it. It was
Yeah,
epic. Yeah,
yeah,
even I use the water bottle every day.
yeah. That's cool. And there was even like some baking in there, like cupcakes, or there was like I came home that night and I bake a lot with my son, and we made I know there were different boxes for every goodie bag, but we got cupcakes and we made them that night, and it was just fantastic. Can you make that?
Well, another one then is that everyone in the office dresses super fancy in all the latest trends.
Oh, trends. Yeah, I don't want to keep saying yes and no. It depends on the people and the team. Um, I think in particular with trends, I feel like the online team, they're a little bit younger and dare I say it, a bit cooler than us oldies in the office. So I feel like they really represent when it comes to the trends. And then I prefer to go quite classic, a bit more of a sort of office uniform. What people might not know is I always love how the fashion department are always the most pared back, like absolutely pared back in the office. There is a lot of black, so people might expect that, but yeah, not full glam. Like it's just like another job. We, you know, lucky if I blow dry my hair. It depends also what you've got on that day. If you've got external meetings or whether you actually like need to bash out a story. One thing I do, this is going a bit off topic, but I always wear lipstick when I've got a really hard day because for some reason it's like armor and it's like a telltale sign that I might not be coping and I need a bit of extra help that day. But there's a bit of a mix, and obviously with the last few years, there's been a lot of trends with sneakers and sports luxe and just athleisure. So there's a lot more flats in the office than there would have been. I think like 5 years ago, but I tend to always wear a heel. That's just, I don't know, old habits die hard. I think I started wearing heels when I was 16.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Why my feet hurt a lot now. 'Cause it's getting
I remember when I was young, I used to think when I start working, I'm going to wear heels every day. And now
Mhm.
I never wear heels. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it
Look,
changes.
I'm in sneakers today, but obviously we're working from home. But yeah, I tend to do a ballet flat and change into the heels. Like you can't commute in heels. Like let's be honest.
No. On the train, no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And then the last one, it might be a yes and no again, but from my perspective and online, it just looks like there are so many glamorous events and dinners and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that part's pretty true. I'm sorry if you can hear noise from outside my house. Yeah, that part is pretty true. You do get invited to a lot of events. I'm a lot pickier now with what I go to, just because I've got a young family and I'm not single and in my 20s like I used to go out a lot more. You could go to things 4 nights a week, usually like pre-COVID times. um, you know Anything to do with advertisers, obviously I really want to support our advertisers, so I go to those events. And then something if it's like really quite special and epic that I'd like to go to. I think the older you get and the more responsibilities you have, your time becomes so precious, so it's got to be something pretty epic. But that is true. We do get invited to a lot of amazing events.
Wow, that's incredible. And then that goes into the last one then, which is you meet so many cool people and celebrities and stuff like that.
Yeah, totally. And that is the biggest perk of the job is the people. It's it's the access, like the access to the people you interview, the people you shoot, the people you, I don't know, just meet at events is absolutely the number one perk of the job and the thing that I find most enjoyable, because when else or what other profession would allow me to meet these amazing people or have these sort of pinch me moments with people. Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
a big true.
Oh, that is awesome. And what was an instance where you met someone and you were just like, this is surreal. How am I meeting this person right now?
I don't know. Oh gosh. I mean, a lot of the interviews that I do are over sort of Zoom or the phone, if they're big international ones. I think not a big pinch me moment, but a pretty funny one. I remember my husband saying was we shot, it was not long after I joined Vogue. So I joined in March of 2019, and Kendall Jenner was out here for Tiffany, and we shot her. It was that epic store opening they did. I think she was on the ground for 24 hours, and we shot her that day. So she flew in the morning, came straight to the studio, shot her all day. She went back to the hotel, did the event, and then flew out that night. It was crazy. And I think it was just funny. I wrote the cover story, but there was all this, I didn't actually hear it. My husband heard it, but all this like Kendall Jenner watch, like, where is she in Sydney? She's landed, she's here for 24 hours. And my husband's like, she's in a studio in Alexandria. Like she's just, she's in the most random location because that's where the shoot was happening. So I think that was quite a funny one. Yeah. Not a pinch me moment. She was really sweet, and very, very professional. And the shoot was amazing. And it was my first cover story for Vogue. So it was really great, but just a weird, like just a funny moment in Sydney where it's like, where is she? And it's like, she's here.
Oh my gosh, I got goosebumps hearing that. That's so cool though
Yeah.
that you got to meet Kendall Jenner.
Yeah. Yeah. She's just very cool. Yeah. Very friendly.
Wow, awesome. Okay, well, I guess we can go on to the career journey now.
Sure.
So, I'd love to hear about your experience starting out in journalism and finishing university. And did you always know that getting into fashion was something that you wanted to do?
It was definitely always magazines. I was an avid magazine reader all throughout my teens. Starting with Dolly and Girlfriend, moving on to Cosmo and Cleo, and then you get older and then you get into Marie Claire. It was always from high school. I wanted to get into journalism, sort of year 11, year 12, and I really wanted to go to UTS and study journalism there, which is where I studied. It was always print for me. I laugh now because when I started out, I've been out of high school for almost 20 years now, but you always laugh because like when I was at uni, there was this subject they introduced called online journalism. And it's like, oh my, no, I don't want to do that. What is that? Is that like computers? I just want to do print. Like I want to go old school. And then it was the first year they introduced that. It's like, why did I not do online? You silly, silly girl. But it was always print for me. At UTS, you had to do broadcast, so TV, radio, as well as print journalism. And I was terrible at TV and lugging around a camera and like your friends and your little crew, and it's like, well, let's go find a story. And at that point, I remember with radio, you had to use MP3 recorders, which I just was terrible with. And it was always print for me. Like magazines was absolutely number one. But I also did a lot of work experience at newspapers. So if I didn't get a job in magazines, it was going to be, newspapers was going to be my next step.
Yeah. So then how did you land a role outside of finishing uni? Because I feel like with journalism, it can be really competitive and difficult to get, that opportunity.
Yeah. So at that point, I don't know if it's changed now, but UTS fed a lot into sort of ABC and SBS. Magazine journalism, I guess, was considered sort of like the lighter side of journalism there. Like I remember doing some subjects in features writing and also like photojournalism and stuff like that. But there was definitely not a lot of us who wanted to go into magazines. But at the same time, UTS was so good because they said, I remember like the first day we started, they said, if you want to get a job in journalism, you need to be doing work experience in your own time, and no one is going to hire you without practical experience. So, you can write all your stories and your subjects as much as you want, but you need that practical real life experience. So that's something that I did from the very beginning. I just interned at a lot of mags, a lot of newspapers. it was a 3-year degree. I'm trying to think where I like interned at Cosmo, I interned at Smash Hits, like these old school magazines that don't exist anymore. And I remember at Smash Hits, I had to look up like the daily gossip for Britney and Justin Timberlake and things like that. It was so funny. Yeah, my local paper. And I think that just really put me in good stead. And at that point, ACP magazines was, the pinnacle of a magazine career. It was sort of the tail end of the Packer era. And I just started doing work experience there, and this magazine had just started called Madison, which I just absolutely loved. So I think that was around 2005, 2004, 2005. And I basically did work experience there and got like an unofficial internship where I would just show up once a week and help the coordinator, who was the front desk, the front desk point of contact. And I think I did that for sort of 10 months unpaid, where I would just do that. And eventually she left and I got that job. So that was while I was in my 3rd year of uni. And I remember I finished uni at night for the last 6 months, which was pretty full on, but it was worth it. And I worked during the day. And this is back in the era where it was like about getting your foot in the door. It's so different now. Like there's so many other avenues, into journalism in terms of creating your own platforms to write. This is way before even blogs were a thing. So it was all about sort of having your face in the building. And then it's like, oh, that girl's around, we might hire her. So it's a very old school approach that I don't think exists today, but it was very much like get your foot in the door and then you work your way up. Whereas now I think you can come in at different levels, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But I love that though, that you took on any opportunity available to network in the company. And
yeah, well, I guess I had to, because I had my whole family are teachers. I don't have anyone in my family who works in the media. I didn't have any connections to anyone who worked in the media. So it was kind of, that was it. That was all I had really. And this is going to sound terrible because I think teaching is such a noble profession and such an underrated profession. But I don't know, I had this nightmare that I was going to end up an English teacher. And I was like, no, I really want to give journalism a shot. I didn't have a backup plan. And I just wanted to give it everything that I could. So I had to, I don't know, I'm not sure whether to call it hustling, but I just had to work unpaid and get my face sort of out there and write. I was writing a lot of stuff at the time. I remember, I think my first published piece was in Dolly. It was a first person piece. Like I was writing unpaid as well. I've still got everything as well, like, old clippings of portfolios and stuff like that when you used to get tear sheets. And I just wanted to build up a portfolio as well.
And you've done such an incredible job, obviously, and you're now the deputy editor of Vogue. Like, how epic is that? Was that super surreal for you?
Yeah, it was. I mean, that was, I'm trying to think how long I've been working. I've been working for more than 15 years. And I think that was, working in fashion magazines or fashion lifestyle magazines was always the goal for me. But to land the job at Vogue was an absolute dream. And it was, it felt like a moment when all the other roles that I'd done over 15 years finally, I don't know, contributed to this one point where, everything I'd been working towards culminated in this role, and everything I learned I use in this role that I work in today. But it was absolutely a dream to land that.
Yes. How incredible. So, what
Yeah.
was your path to, this role and senior leadership? And what do you think have been some of the driving forces for your success?
So I essentially worked my way up through magazines and through different titles. Do you want me to explain sort of like a rough career path? Would that
Yeah,
help?
sure. Yeah.
So I worked at ACP um, for I think sort of 4 or 5 years. I did have a little bit of a quarter life crisis in my sort of mid to late 20s because I think a lot of people fall into this trap where you start off as a junior somewhere and you work so hard and work so hard and you find it really hard to be promoted and for people to see you as something other than sort of the junior in the office. So I did almost have to leave to come back and be promoted. But I did have this little bit of a quarter life crisis where I worked in PR for a year because I just wasn't sure whether I was in the right field or maybe I could be good in PR as well. So I did that, which I think, in hindsight was so invaluable because I got to see how brands think and brands work and campaigns, work as well. And then I came back to Madison and I worked there until 2013 when sadly Madison closed, and then I went freelance for a while. So I had a bit of experience in sort of the freelance realm and pitching stories and working for different titles and working a little bit in digital then. Also did some custom publishing, so creating magazines for clients or brands, and that was actually with News Corp. I did the magazine for the National Breast Cancer Foundation called Pink, and I worked on Fashion Capital magazine for Chadston down in Victoria. And from there, I went to Marie Claire. I was on a contract there for a couple of months just because they had a few people leave. And then they ended up putting me on staff. And then I went to Sunday Style in 2015. Gosh, my memory. So that was my first experience sort of working on a weekly, like as a glossy weekly. And then that rebranded as Stella in 2016. And that was probably the most challenging time of my career. It's either a launch or a relaunch is the most stressful but challenging but also rewarding time in magazines. And then I was at Stella for a few years, went on mat leave 2018 and then got the Vogue job, and it was a sort of internal transfer when I got that job. There was a second part of your question. What was it about?
Yeah, the driving forces for your success.
Oh gosh, I guess I just love what I do, really. And I think when you love what you do, you just work really hard. I don't know. I think people might think that magazines is quite an easy job, or journalism's, especially fashion, a little bit fluffy. But I can tell you, every single person at Vogue works so hard, and I think it's just been harder as well. Like, we are a shrinking industry. I think there was a lot more space for a little bit of fluffing around when I first started. But it's a hard slog. It's a hard job. But at the same time, it's an incredibly rewarding job. So I don't think anyone would work in magazines unless you really, really love it and you're passionate about it and you want to do well. So that, I guess, has been sort of the driving force.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's so true. And when you do love something, it doesn't even feel like work. So,
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't feel like work, and I've also been really blessed to have worked with some really amazing teams that do feel like family. You spend so many hours of a day working with these people, so it makes such a difference when you do get on and you're passionate about the product and what you're creating, and you're also really proud of it. So when you've got that sort of environment, you just kind of thrive off of each other as well. So that's been a huge help. I can't imagine working in a workplace where, it's toxic or you don't have people who aren't after the same goal. And I think for somewhere like Vogue as well, we're very aware that, we are not bigger than the brand. Like, I'm just a part of a cog in the wheel of Vogue, but we're very much custodians of the brand as well. So it's our responsibility to uphold the standard and what Vogue stands for. So it's something we take very seriously.
yeah. No, I think who you work with makes such a difference. And my last 6 months, I'm on this grad program and we do rotations every 6 months. And I was working in this really male dominated team, and my new team is very female dominated, and it's just such a different environment as well. So I think
Yeah.
working with women is so beautiful.
Yeah, it is. And to be honest, I haven't had much experience working with men. I've had a little bit more at News Corp, because when I went to sort of Sunday Style and Stella, because that's a newspaper inserted magazine, what we call a NIM. So working with the much more male team of a newspaper was actually really fun and really refreshing, just even to have like different dynamics. But even that was just an amazing experience. But yeah, I've been very, I don't know, lucky to have, yeah, a good group of women sort of supporting you as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess that's a good reminder to that stereotype that, women can be competitive and hard to work with, that that's not true.
Yeah. And I think that's something I've really become conscious of, I guess, as I've become a little bit more senior, is really I want to foster collaboration with my team and to get everyone working in harmony. We've all got strengths, we've all got weaknesses. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's something that's really important. I'm sorry, there's a really big truck going past.
It's okay.
Um, yeah, I think it's just, I don't know, like I I know that, there's some horror stories of magazines of people being pitched against each other and there being a lot of competition, um, which a little bit of, I guess, healthy competition is okay in some parts, but I think it's, you want to create a workplace where there's a really positive culture and that people feel like they can grow and really bring something to the table and that everyone's valued. So that's something I really try to encourage in my team.
Yes, that's awesome. And that kind of goes on to my next question, which is what is it like working at Vogue and how would you describe the culture?
The culture's really good. I mean, how is it working at Vogue? I love going to work every day. Obviously, we're in lockdown now, but I've never worked really in a workplace where I don't enjoy going to work, or in a profession where I'm just doing it for the money, because let's face it, magazines, it's not, you don't do it for the money. You do it because you love the job and you're passionate about the job. Absolutely, the highlight is working with the team and everyone bringing their sort of A game. Edwina is so supportive. If you want to do something and if you want to make something happen, you can go for it. Like, give it a shot. Like, if you've got an idea, and you want to see if it has legs, yeah, you have that permission, I guess, and that space to give it a shot, and sort of playing into what I said before about upholding the standard of Vogue as well. Yeah, I mean, without the people who sort of make up the fabric of the team, it's like, I don't know, we're not. Yeah, it's very much about that group effort. There's no sort of single stars. It's like you've all really got to work well together, because getting out a magazine each month is a huge team effort and can be a mammoth task. So if you're not gelling, yeah, you're not gonna produce the best product.
I guess with writing, you don't think it's so collaborative, but it definitely does sound like it's a huge collaboration.
Yeah, especially when you've got shoots involved as well, because yeah, you've got the production team working with the talent to try and shoot them. You've got the fashion team who are bringing to life a concept that has to look amazing on the page. Then you've got the art team who you've got to liaise with as well, in terms of just how you want this laid out and what their ideas are to bring it to life. And then you've actually got the story. So there's so many different layers depending on the story. Like, obviously, if you're not shooting, it's a little bit different. But yeah, there's lots of different components. It's not just yeah, it's not just, I don't know, you don't work like as isolated islands. It's all very much, yeah, collaborative.
Yeah. So what is the process then of creating each edition every month? And
Oh my God.
how long does that take to prepare?
Oh gosh, how long have you got? Yeah, I mean, we're working on a couple of issues at any one time. Let me start by saying that. So, for example, at the moment, I've just sent October to print this week. So that means November is sort of all in the pipeline and ticking along. And then I'm already in discussion sort of December, Jan stories as well with my team. So you're probably working across like in my head, like about 3 issues at a time. And also because it's so completely fluid, and especially with COVID, dates and projects are changing. So you have to be able to sub in things and sub out, and you can't get stressed by that. You have to just think that it's like a huge puzzle that you're bringing together, and things come in and things come out, but you've got to try and make it as strong as possible at the end of the day as well. So I guess with my role as well, I kind of describe it like the engine room as a deputy editor. Like I do still write a little bit, but I'm not like a full-time writer. So I'm sort of bringing together all the different departments. So everyone from production, so, you know, all who are planning and doing all the logistics for the shoots, fashion, who are sort of working on the shoots and needing, you know, looks and captions and things like that, you know, the writing team, the art team, the subbing team. So like, you know, after everything gets shot, then it basically moves on to production. You got to put it on the page, you got to bring it to life. And I guess I'm kind of like the common person that I need to make all of it happen and all of it go as seamlessly as possible, because if not, you're going to end up with blank pages. Not that that's ever happened, but yeah, it's very much being, I guess, the leader of the engine room. That does not sound sexy at all. But even things like, you know, I'm across also, you know, I work with the commercial team, I work with the marketing team, like on, you know, large scale executions. I work with production in terms of if we've got a special execution we're doing on the cover, or, you know, even with down to the printer and what the printer needs and when they need it. And so it's a lot. And I feel like I have probably about 50 balls in the air at any one time. And or actually not, I'm not even going to use that analogy. I think I remember hearing it, someone describing it like a bookshelf, and my head has got all these books, and then sometimes, like, depending on what's the priority, one pops in and something else pops out, and then another one pops in and that one pops out. So you've got to be comfortable with having things that aren't resolved and really in the air. And they will get, I think it's just experience. Like I used to get nervous and stressed when things, I'm like, what's going to happen with this and what's going to happen with this? But it all works out, and you've just got to be on top of everything as much as you can. Obviously, I feel like I drop balls all the time. But yeah, you just got to be comfortable with uncertainty and being flexible and having the magazine as, you know, fluid as possible before you send it, and then try bring it all together and make the magic happen, and then send it off to the printer.
Yeah. I know you said you love working with your team, and that definitely sounds like it's one of your favorite parts of your role. But in addition to that, what is your favorite part of being the deputy editor?
Oh gosh, probably that I'm going to say a few things. No 2 days are the same. I love that I can be doing such different things on like different days. Like, I might have external meetings and be working on some commercial initiatives with our team or some campaigns. I could be writing. I could be at a shoot like all day and just hanging out and seeing the magic happen. Yeah, I just love that it's so, just the variety, I think, is incredible. Yeah, and like I said before, sort of just also the access and the people you get to meet. They're probably my 2 favourite parts about being deputy.
You've interviewed so many incredible people,
Yeah.
and Gina Davis at Vogue Codes is just one
Oh,
example.
of Gina Davis.
Yeah, that was an epic interview. But I'd love to know what your most memorable interview was.
Oh, that's so hard to pick. That's so hard. I actually wrote a few down because I've got a few memorable ones. Can I go through a few different?
Yes, I would love that.
Okay. There was a couple of years ago, I had to, it was 2 years ago, because it was the September cover for 2019. It was Margot Robbie for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And for that cover story, we chose to do an in conversation between Quentin Tarantino and Margot. So we got Quentin to actually interview Margot. And so we'd teed that up, and I had to, a lot of the time when we're doing conversations, I have to be on the call and I record them, and I, say hi, and I prompt them and I prep them. And then I go away and I'll edit the whole thing together. And that one, I remember it was like early on a Saturday morning, and I got dialed into this, like a hotel room in LA where they were doing the junket for, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And Quentin Tarantino just did not use any of my questions, which is completely fine. And I didn't expect him to, but I felt like I had to like give examples of like questions. And I mean, it was just a surreal experience getting him to interview Margot. I'm dialed in on a Saturday morning. I'm also petrified it's not going to record properly. So I'm recording on like 2 or 3 different devices, because if I don't get this interview, I can't make it happen again. This is like my one shot at getting this recorded. And I remember at the time, my husband and little boy, and I was like, you go upstairs and you are not coming down for an hour. I don't care what it is. You cannot come downstairs, because I had them on loudspeaker to try and record them. And then it was like, it was just the most surreal experience where it's like, this would never happen. I can't believe this just happened. And then got off the phone, and then I'm off to the park, and then I'm back to my like little my little motherhood life. It was just so weird, and thinking like an hour ago I was on the phone with Quentin Tarantino and Margot Robbie, and now I'm pushing a swing and getting a takeaway coffee. Like that was a surreal one. And another one that actually involved Margot, she interviewed Carrie Mulligan for us last year for Promising Young Woman, which is like which was my favorite movie all of last year. And usually, I try not to schedule interviews in the middle of the night, but Margot was in LA, Carrie was in, she was like Devon or Cornwall or something in the UK. And it was, when COVID had hit, so everyone was, in lockdown. And this time came through of like 2:30 or something. And it's like, no, I can do that. I can get on a Zoom with those guys at 2:30, because I'm like, I'm not going to make them reschedule. I can just do it and be tired the next day. And that was just fun. And again, like Margot completely ran with it and was literally playing interviewer, and it was lots of fun. And then you've got to try go back to sleep after that. But another one that I loved, I remember it was for Sunday Style. I did, sorry, I'm just going to keep rattling off. I'm trying to think of ones that I did it's usually the ones like at 2 and 3 a.m. because I'm too scared to change them because I'm too excited. I did Sophia Coppola for a film. And I remember Sophia Coppola was one of those, I really like the interviews that surprise me a little bit, because you're so used to dealing with publicists and celebrities and them wanting the questions first. And I think she just, like, I got a text from her assistant saying, oh, she's just on the way to the office. She's running like 5 minutes late. And then she calls you direct. And it's just like, oh, hi, how are you? I remember Kate Winslet did that to me as well. Like I was, that was a funny one. I was at Marie Claire, and that was for the dressmaker. And, usually for those who don't know, usually you might get a call. It's from sort of like someone in the film company or, an operator, and they basically call you and say, all right, we're going to connect you now, or we're going to connect you in 5 minutes. So you've got a little bit of time to prep. And I remember at Marie Claire, we had this room where we'd do all our interviews, and I had at that point we were using, little headphones that you'd stick into your dictaphone, and it was so tangled. And I'd given them the number for the meeting room, and I was just running late, and I was running to the room, and I'm untangling it, and I answer the phone and I remember her just saying, hello, it's Kate Winslet. And I'm just like, oh my God, hi, how are you? I'm just trying to, and I was just like so flustered, and because I thought it was going to be the operator connecting the call, and I'd have a few minutes to untangle my stupid headphones. And of course it was just her ready to go. And I'm like, okay, all right, let's get into this interview. But one other one, actually, no, I'll have 2 more. Can I mention 2 more?
Yes, I love hearing these stories, of course.
It's just funny. I remember, not long after I started at Vogue as well, we'd shot Rihanna for the cover. So I wasn't there for the actual shoot, but that was that was years in the making, that cover. And I interviewed Julia Gillard, had gone on a trip with her for her charity work, and just interviewing someone like Julia Gillard about Rihanna was just hilarious. And it was just like, what am I doing? This is just so funny. And she was just such a good sport, and talking about how they had met up through this charity work and had dinner in New York. Like, just the fact that, just the thought of those two having dinner in Soho and then going on a trip somewhere was just hilarious. And she was such a good sport. And I had to mention Sia as well, because I did see her about a year ago for Vogue. I think it was October 2020. And I'd read that Sia does a lot of work from her bed, because she's got quite a bit of, she's got some chronic illnesses where she has a lot of lethargy. And so she's got her house, and she's got, all her staff and her team and her collaborators, and they'll be there, but she just like runs all her meetings from her bed. And then I zoomed with her, and then I ended up turning off the camera because the connection was so bad, but I'm just like, hi, like, Sia's like, hey, and I'm like, are you in bed? And she's like, yeah, I'm here with my dogs. So that was funny. I did the whole cover interview with Sia from her bed.
Oh my gosh.
So it's just, again, someone who, didn't have all the publicists and everything. And it's like, let's just do the interview and have it as authentic as possible. And that was, I don't know, that was lots of fun. So it's those sorts of ones that are a bit surprising and a bit quirky. And it's like, oh, that's so good, because you've got something different you can talk about in your story as well, rather than just being on the phone with a celebrity with 6 people listening in. So yeah, those were some good ones.
Yeah, those are incredible people. How epic to say that you've interviewed those people.
Yeah. I wish I'd kept a better record of who I'd interviewed, like, over the course of my career, because you forget, especially as you get older and you've got a lot more to worry about. I try and keep all the PDFs of my stories, and but you forget how, I guess the stories of, I don't know, there's always some funny backstories as well. And yeah, so I don't know, if you're going into journalism and interviewing people, write them down, because you will forget who you've interviewed.
That's when you know you've interviewed so many, when you can't even remember them.
Yeah.
You're making me want to work at Vogue. I feel like this is just fulfilling my childhood fantasy of knowing what it's about.
Yeah, it's I have to say, one of the most fulfilling things as well is, obviously, I work to bring stories to life and bring the magazine to life, but I'm not like a creative. I'm not a stylist. I'm not a photographer. And I have to say, I like the creatives on our team are just incredible. And when you're working with them on a shoot or on a shoot concept, and it's some talent that you've arranged or whatever, and seeing them bring something completely to life, and like, you might see clothes in the cupboard like we were talking before, but seeing it actually brought to life by people who are really talented in those creative realms is really epic. And then you get it on the page and you're like, oh my God, how did you make this look so good? I can't believe this is what it looks like. And I don't know why I'm thinking of this, but we did this shoot at the beginning of the year with the cast of Hamilton. It was the first time they'd all been shot together, and we just had these epic fashion looks. And it was a full day shoot down in, we did it in Western Sydney in this big grassy area. And yeah, just seeing the looks that Pip, who was styling that one from our team, came up with, and then how they wore them on the day, it was just, I don't know, it was one of those moments where I saw the shots and it's just like, oh my gosh, this is just so epic. Like, it really, it was really brought to life. And I think that's because I can't do that. I'm just in awe of those creatives who can.
How phenomenal, though, to see what people actually come up with and the result that an effect that your work in Vogue has on people. And I think that's one of the things, as we spoke about earlier, Vogue codes. I think that's one of the most amazing things about Vogue, is the fact that it's not just about fashion or the magazine, but all these incredible initiatives that you guys put together. So what is something that you've been involved with Vogue that has been so rewarding and one of your favorite initiatives?
I have to say it's codes. I love codes so much. Code started a few years before I joined. And it's something that I said to you before. It's like one of those initiatives where you can have as little or as much involvement in it as you want. And I think I did a little bit the first year, but especially the last 2 years, I've done a lot more with Vogue Codes, just because, I don't know, you've got the opportunity to meet these amazing women in all these different fields and to interview them and to meet them and, like, I don't know, find out their own career paths, and just to be part of this movement to try and, inspire young women to get into STEM. I mean, why wouldn't you want to be part of that? I also say to Edwina, it's like, I have no problems getting up on stage with a microphone and, like, making a fool out of myself. So I'm always happy to, like, do a live Q&A. But I really enjoy Vogue Codes. Yeah, Optus is our major partner, and I've just loved working with them, just because the other thing I was going to say is I really love working in stories with women in sport, and Optus is one of those examples where they work with women in sport and tech, and it's like just emerging of these amazing things. So Codes is one, and doing stories on women in sport, sort of ongoing with Vogue. We do them sort of once every sort of 3 to 4 months as well. And I think there's this huge opportunity to inspire younger women with these incredible stories from female sports people. So yeah, I've really enjoyed doing those as well. I joke that, like, I'm the sports editor of Vogue. So if you see a sports story, chances are I've done it or I've been heavily involved in it.
Oh, that's so awesome. And even going back to Vogue Codes, it was just such an empowering day. Like, I remember leaving feeling so empowered to just, do well in my career, and oh, I loved it. And those events are so special. Well, then, for people who want to work at Vogue, how can you find what positions are available and where do you apply? And what does Vogue look for in employees?
So with anything to do with media is kind of a little bit more, I guess, insider, and it's less about what's advertised. Obviously, there are jobs that are advertised and media jobs that are advertised, but it is very much, if you're in there and working, you are front of mind as well. But again, at the same time, it's really hard at the moment because we're not in the office, we're not taking interns because of COVID. So it is really challenging. I think it's almost like there are ways to do, News Corp is such a large company as well. I don't know, there's no traditional path to Vogue anymore. I feel like, when I first got my first job, it was that foot in the door and you work your way up. And I feel like there's just so many sideways steps now, especially where online is concerned. It's not like people start at the bottom in online and work their way up. People have worked at so many other publications and jumped across. So I would almost like, if you can't intern, maybe look at the company or the publication or where you want to be working, and consider if it's the company that you want to be working at as well, and you believe in their values and what you think they can bring to your career as well. Working there and just getting your face sort of shown and everything. And I think also just reaching out to people. Like, I've had people ask me for coffees and advice on career, and I always sort of say yes as much as I can, because I was that same person reaching out for advice. So just connecting with staff as well, because a lot of the time, people are happy to have a coffee. So just creating those connections, and that's how you'll found out about roles and about jobs as well, rather than, I don't know, going on Seek or something like that. It's just, I guess, forming connections. Yeah. Oh, you asked what we look for in people, didn't you? I was going to say, I mean, this is just something that I look for in people as well, but there was a very famous, I think I read it about something Anna Wintour asked in interviews, And she apparently asked people what they're interested in, as in like nothing fashion related. What else are you passionate about? And I think that's so important, even though obviously if you're applying for a job at Vogue, you do care about fashion. But there are so many other things that we cover and so many other things that that affect fashion as well, that I think it's really important to be curious about the world. I think it's important to read everything, high and lowbrow, be tapped into the news cycle to know just about world affairs. And I think that's what I would look for as well. And just not being afraid to keep learning and just keep growing as well. I was going to say, there was really annoyed me. I had this conversation with Alice, a fashion features director, a little while ago. It was someone, I think she was sort of like a fashion influencer or content creator, or they don't like being called influencers anymore, but she made this really bold statement about not reading the news because she didn't have to, because she worked in fashion. And Alice and I were just like, that is so the completely wrong way to look at it, because you know, fashion is affected by global economics, it's affected by the pandemic, it's affected by climate change. Like, it's such a huge industry that is dependent on a lot of other things. So to say that you don't want to read the news because you're in fashion, I think was completely narrow-minded. So yeah, I think it's important for people to just be engaged in the world and in media and what's happening, no matter what. And I think that's regardless for any department that you work in as well. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that an experience in one area can strengthen your experience and work in another. So it's super important to learn from everything.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a good example of that as well is you know, like sustainability, or you know, when we did the Vogue 60th issue a couple of years ago, Edwina made this really strong commitment to tell Indigenous stories, because going back through the archives of 60 years of Vogue, she was horrified at the history of the lack of storytelling of Indigenous stories, or even representation of Indigenous Australians. And so, you know, we regularly, you know, it's just part of our thinking now in terms of who we feature in the magazine. But, you know, a lot of the girls in the fashion department had really strong opinions and were really interested in this area. But, you know, they're stylists, and, you know, people put them in a box and it's like, yeah, but you just put clothes on a person. But it's so great to work in an environment where you're having these big discussions about what you want the brand to be and to represent, and everyone has an opinion because everyone's sort of tapped in and everyone can bring something something different. So that's why I think it's so important that, I don't know, your breadth of knowledge and interests need to be, yeah, quite broad.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's really good advice. And actually, in every interview that I do, people always emphasize the importance of being a lifelong learner. So,
Yes, yes, absolutely. You have to be. I mean, if you're looking at going into journalism anyway, chances are you're a very curious person, or a nosy person like me. No, you're curious about people and about stories. So you need to keep that and you need to foster that, because that's something that's, you know, it's an integral part of being a journalist, and to going down rabbit holes sometimes, and you ending up with a really great story. And when that happens and you've chased something and competed against other titles for stories as well, that's when you get a lot of satisfaction that you not only brought a story to life, but, you know, it wasn't just an easy get. Like I get frustrated with people who think stories are just what lands in your inbox from PR departments. That's not actually finding a story or securing an exclusive. Like it is I don't know, it is meant to be a bit of a chase as well, and pushing yourself out of boundaries. Actually, can I tell you a really funny story? Sorry, it just reminded me of something. I remember when I was at Madison, we were doing we were doing a green issue. It was sort of in the early days of sustainability. It would have been sort of mid 2000s. And my editor at the time said to me, like, we had this page and it was like a last page. And it was like, I think we called it wisdom. And it was like life lessons from a prominent person who tied in with that theme. My editor was like, I need that lady who's like chains herself to like steamrollers and she's in the mangroves and she's in an island in Queensland. And I'm like, okay, what island? Can't remember. But she's like a really cool activist and she's like really old. And I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to find this woman? And so I had to like, with like a couple of little leads, I had to like track this woman down. And it turns out she was this amazing activist who did chain herself to mangroves, and it was Hinchinbrook Island. And I had to call around and find this woman. And then when you find this person and you speak to them finally, and you're like, oh my God, I've spent how long trying to track you down and you are the person. That's why I think it's, yeah, I don't know. It was just that example where I got such satisfaction out of that because I had to work hard for it and try and, just try and track down the story.
Yeah, and then you feel proud of yourself.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
absolutely.
For people who aren't studying journalism or media but love the world of fashion and love and are so passionate about platforms like Vogue, are there opportunities for jobs outside of journalism or, for example, STEM, or is it more?
Yeah, I think there is. And I think increasingly it's in that tech space. Oh my gosh, and I've forgotten her name who I interviewed last year, but I interviewed the local CEO of Depop. And she was amazing. I loved her so much. I feel so embarrassed that I can't remember her name. But I think within that space, like that is a really exciting space where you've got a platform that is essentially like, I'm not on Depop, I'm clearly too old, I'm not cool, young enough, but I know what they're doing. And I think it's so fascinating. I think the stats are obviously it's very, I think it's early 20s, but in terms of merging a fashion platform with sort of a more of a social media platform as well, and people sharing their love of fashion, I think is a really exciting space to be in. Um, from Vogue Codes as well, I remember Kinjal, who did a keynote, she's the CMO of Squarespace in the US. She, obviously is a very, oh my gosh, she was so glamorous. I thought she was the most glamorous person we've ever featured at Codes. And, she's obviously American, but she went into tech and engineering, purely through that science background, and then ended up working, I think it was for Bergdorf's or Barney's when they merged to ecom. So there was sort of a fusion of her two passions there as well. So there's definitely opportunity. And I think in the tech space, it's really exciting. And even like, I love fashion, but I also, when I was growing up, I just wanted to be a journalist in sort of the fashion lifestyle space. Fashion was never the be all and end all for me. It was more about storytelling and just learning to be a better writer. So it's almost like that's kind of happened for me as well, because I don't know, fashion came into it with the Vogue job a little bit more. So yeah, it is a bit of a dream when you can merge, I guess, your vocation with a passion.
Yeah. And what's your advice for, because I feel like now it can be really hard to not go for jobs that you're passionate about but don't necessarily pay as well. It can be really easy to go on the traditional path and kind of focus on money. So how do you balance the two, I guess?
Oh gosh, it's so hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard. I wish this profession paid more than it did. I think that's just the reality of it, is that it's not the highest paying job in the world, but you get so much more, I guess, out of it. And it's just navigating that. I know a few people who've done little side hustles on the side, to sort of supplement some income if they're in sort of more entry level jobs. It's so hard because you do feel like you do spend a lot of time slogging it out. And sometimes those promotions, are few and far between. So it's hard because I've been there as well. Like I felt like there was a long time where there was a certain threshold in income that I couldn't get over. And it was like, I'm working so hard and I can't sort of get there. But, this is something, coming from me, someone who's got a bit of hindsight and knowing that hard work does eventually pay off. But I think it has a lot to do with your workplace as well, and career progression, and people investing in you as well, and making you feel like you've got a clear career path and that you feel supported and that you can continue to grow. And yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it as well.
Yeah, for sure. I guess it's also about values and what in your life is your goal
Yeah.
and priorities.
I mean, it would be so much easier if Sydney and Australia in general was just a lot easier cost of living, because it is, it's hard. Like yeah, I empathize because I've been there, and it is, it's hard to balance the two when you've got a career that you feel so passionately about, that isn't the most well-paying job in the world. So yeah, I don't know, I've just always loved my job so much and loved my career that I've never, actually there was a time, there was one time I maybe looked at doing something else, but usually, I've just always stayed on that path, because for me that's so much more important than money. But when I said before I had, worked in beauty PR for a year, there was a role that was offered to me that was paying really well. I was working internally with a major international beauty company, and I was offered this job. And at the time, I even think I may have accepted the role, or I definitely was in discussions quite far along with them. And then I got offered the chance to go back to magazines. And the pay difference was quite significant, but I chose magazines because my heart was just there and my passion was there. And it was a kind of a fork in the road moment. I felt like if I went down the PR road at that point, it was sort of, that was going to be it. So I was like, I didn't feel like I was quite finished. So I chose a lesser paying job. I was very happy.
Yeah, and it has paid off.
Yeah, it's paid off in the long run.
Yeah, for sure. Well, then what would your advice be for young people entering the workforce? I know we messaged about intuition and your passion in following your instincts. So I'd love to hear a bit more on that.
Yeah, well, that was just an example where I really did follow my instincts, and that felt like that job. I had this carrot dangled at me where, it was a higher paying role, but it just didn't feel right. It just wasn't me. It just wasn't where I wanted to go. I've always been really, and I recognize it is quite lucky to be quite in tune with your instincts and your sort of gut feeling. And like I said before, I feel like that started for me, at the end of high school, when, I thought I was on this path, like where I want to study nutrition or become a dietitian. And then, it was in year 11 when I had these amazing English and history teachers who made me more interested in writing. And I was like, no, actually, I think I want to be a journalist. And so I just followed, even though I did all the completely wrong subjects for journalism, I followed that path. I think I take that for granted sometimes because, my husband has had a very successful career as well, but he is very much a person who will literally weigh up pros and cons and think about things 1,000 times over and think of every single scenario. But I'm the sort of person, I know if something is right or wrong, and I can't understand why he can't make decisions sometimes. Like, how can you not know if you want this? Because you should know. It's like a gut feeling. It's either right or wrong. And for some people, it's not that easy. And I recognize that is really, really tough. And I think, I just think I try and stay true to, what I want to do and what I want to achieve, and also just what you enjoy doing. Like working, we're going to be working till we're so old. Don't you want to be doing something where you're actually enjoying it? So I guess for people starting out, I would say like just do as much groundwork and extensive, I guess, sort of work experience or getting as much experience in a broad sense, no matter what career it is that you want to do. Because I think it's only by exposing yourself to so much you're going to get an idea of like, oh, I actually really enjoyed this. And oh, I thought I enjoyed this, but I actually don't. Like for me, I remember when I was doing my interning in my early 20s, yeah, I remember in like, you know, doing work experience at my local paper, and I never thought I'd want to work. First of all, it was always magazines number one, but you know, newspapers, and I actually really enjoyed it. Like even my local paper growing up, I was like, oh, this was actually really good. I could actually work here, and that was not. I did not expect that. So it's only by doing those, by throwing yourself in the deep end a little bit and exposing yourself to a lot. You can get an idea of what you enjoy. And I guess a more recent example was when I said about doing some custom publishing. That was, what year was that? 2014, I did that. Like it's the same skills, it's building a magazine, but I was doing it for clients. And I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was really great. And like I said, I worked with the National Breast Cancer Foundation, and I even did some freelance work. I remember my boss at the time, Mark, was going on leave, and I had to help with the Subaru magazine, like the magazine that the customers for Subaru get. But it's exactly the same skills that I was doing. And I was like, oh, actually, you know, I really enjoy it. So, and at that point, I knew, like, no matter what happens in my career, custom publishing is an option for me because I know I enjoy it because it's still storytelling, it's still bringing a story to life and building a magazine. So yeah, that would be my advice. And then trying to tap into what you get a lot of enjoyment out of.
Yeah. And I guess that's the beauty of being so young is you have time to experiment and work out what you do like.
Yeah, it can be hard though, I know, because like I was in a rush to get my career started, and I was one of those people where like looking back, I wish I'd enjoyed uni a bit more and savored that time a little bit more. Whereas I was obviously, you know, I got told I had to do all this work experience in order to get a job, and I just I worked so hard at that, and I just wanted to start earning and start my career as soon as possible. So I was really impatient. So it is, I don't know, it's like, it's great advice on one hand, but at the same time, I totally understand people who just want to start their careers because I was like that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you feel like, I guess with social media, it's so easy to compare to other people and other people's careers and feel like, I mean, I'm only 21, so I tell myself, you're so young, but it still can
Yeah.
be hard to.
So young, so young. It really is. I think obviously with anything with social media, you just have to remember that it's a show reel of the best parts of someone's life. But I think it's important to, I mean, if you're in your early 20s, um, seek out or connect with, like seek out a network or connect with people who want to be doing similar things to you. One of the very best things that ACP or that was just sort of a side effect of ACP was, you know, this was in the heyday of all the magazines, like I said, like Dolly and Cleo and Cosmo and Shop to Your Drop and Harper's Bazaar and Madison. So there were all these like junior writers, and we would go to the same functions, and we just all sort of became friends. And you just had this immediate network of people who are in the same job as you, who are kind of probably dealing with the same challenges as you. And it was weirdly not competitive because you're all working, you know, your own jobs in your own magazine. So that I think was really valuable for me, and I'm still friends with a lot of those women as well, which is great.
Oh, that's lovely. And did you have any mentors throughout your work career journey as well?
I didn't have any like, I guess, official mentors per se, but I definitely had editors who taught me a lot. And I think what's even more important now, there's a term that's been thrown around the last few years. It's like sometimes like mentors are great, but also advocates and people who will advocate for you on your behalf and actually put you forward for things. So I've definitely had a lot of women like that. I had Actually, one of them, her name's Farah Storr. She just actually has resigned as editor of LUK, but she worked here for a while in Australia and then went back to the UK. So I was texting with her last night, just saying how amazing, she's had a lasting impact on a lot of people in magazines, both in the UK and Australia. So I learned a lot from her. My editor at Stella, Sarah Lamarquand, I learned a huge amount from her, and she always advocated for me and really championed me as well. And then of course Edwina is amazing, and she will support you with whatever you want to do. So it's not so much as official mentors where I've had sessions with people, but I've just had amazing, it's magazines, it's a female dominated industry anyway, and I've had amazing editors who have not only taught me things but also championed me and supported me and advocated for me as well. So you want to do that for the next generation.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. And I guess an advocate is almost a little bit better than a mentor if they can, help you out in that way.
Well, they're the ones having sort of much more senior conversations as well. And when opportunities come up, they're the ones who, have a seat at the table and can say, oh, actually, this person would be great for that. So, often when you're a little bit more junior, you're not privy to those conversations. And I think it's a huge responsibility to be in a position where you can do that for people you work with. But it's really valuable to have that person, being, I guess even just essentially, it sounds corny, but believing in you and believing that you could do something. So I think that's important.
For sure. And that point actually reminded me of something that I wanted to ask, but I forgot. It was, so you spoke about your editor, who's the editor at Elle in the UK.
Yeah.
I wanted to know about the collaboration between Vogue Worldwide, because of course there's Vogue Paris, British Vogue, Vogue America. So is there collaboration between all the Vogues, and is there potential to travel and work at another Vogue overseas or anything like that?
Yeah, it's a little bit. We're not we're a license here in Australia, so I work for News Corp and we have the license to Vogue. So I don't work for Condé Nast, who's the parent company. Absolutely, there's collaboration, and the most recent example of that is our September cover. We've been doing a couple of global initiatives every year. Actually, you'll see the cover behind me. That was September last year, and it was the Hope issue. This year it was New Beginnings. So every single Vogue internationally, I think there's 27 editions. We all had to have a sunrise on the cover to symbolise new beginnings. And that was our beautiful cover with Magnolia and her daughter. And I think there was some quite large executions that we did globally. That we ran across sort of all the issues. There was a beautiful feature with Mucha Prada and Raf Simons, who obviously co-creative directors at Prada. There was another big global shoot we were calling, it had the working title of like the Olympics of Fashion, with people like Adut were in that, and Gigi Hadid. So we ran that as well. So there's dialogue and there's collaboration, but at the same time, what I love so much about Vogue locally, or Australian Vogue, is that we do still shoot our own covers. We're not reliant on other markets, so we can make those decisions about who we think is important for our reader, and whose story we want to tell. That's a USP. We're doing these amazing epic shoots that no one is going to have. Whereas, there are some magazines where it's the cover and it's like, oh, okay, that was on like their British edition like 2 months ago. Do you know what I mean? So we've got like kind of the best of both worlds, where we can work with international titles in like co-productions and on the same stories, but run them at the same time. But at the same time, we're still shooting our own stuff with our own unique vision and point of view and voice that is unique to the Australian market. Does that make sense?
No, that does make sense. Does that mean you guys shot Selena Gomez?
Yeah.
Oh my
gosh.
We
did that.
Did you get to meet her?
No, so we shot that. Majority of covers are shot overseas, so LA, New York, or London, Paris. So it depends on where the talent is, but every single person on the cover of Vogue Australia has been shot for Vogue Australia.
Wow.
And no one else. Selena was in LA from memory. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but that's like when I talk about our production team, Ricky, who heads up production, has got teams like that she's in touch with all over the world. So she's able to bring together, these amazing creative teams or the right people to shoot that particular talent, and we can make that happen, which is which is really incredible, because it's not something like I said, not every, I honestly think we're the only magazine in the country doing that. So yeah.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing. So
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it's really good. And knowing, like, I don't know, sometimes when it's LA or New York and a cover shoot's happening, but there's the time difference and you're like, oh, the cover shoot's happening now. I wonder what's happening and wonder what the story is. And yeah, it's nerve-wracking. And then when you get the images, you're just like, oh my God, blown away. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so epic. Like everyone does such a good job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to talk to you about was you're a mother and you're about to have your
Yeah.
yeah, you're about to have your second baby as well.
Yeah. Sorry.
Soon,
Just got that.
hopefully soon. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But obviously balancing motherhood and career success is a big, big achievement. And a lot of people listening will have to deal with that at one stage in their lives as well. So I wanted to hear your advice or experience in motherhood and achieving career success.
Oh my gosh, it's so hard. I'm not going to lie. It's really tough. And you need to have a lot of support. So obviously I've got a lot of support at home. I've got the support of my extended family as well. But I've also got the amazing support of my workplace. So Edwina's a mum, in the Vogue office, family always comes first, no matter what is happening, family is always the first priority. But it is, it's a shock to the system going back to work. And I went back first 4 days a week and then full time. Yeah, it's really, I'm not going to lie, it's really challenging because, as much as you might be 50-50 in your own parenting with your husband or partner, it's, so much still does rely on the mums and the females of the family. Especially, it's just those early years are really tough when you're either navigating having a nanny or daycare. They get sick all the time. You feel like you're failing at motherhood. You feel like you're failing at work. You can have really down days where it's like, why is this so hard? I guess the things that got me through those tricky first, it's that first year going back to work is really tough. Obviously, I had an amazing editor and boss who was a huge supporter of me. And if you get the call from daycare, which you get all the time, saying they're sick, they've been hit in the head, they've got a bloody nose, or I don't know, like, honestly, when you think there's nothing else you can get called about, you get called about it. Yeah, I've had, it's sort of like what I said before about having, that those peers or that network of people going through the same period as you. Mothers groups are really important. Finding like-minded people who are in similar, like not necessarily your same industry, but in demanding jobs, the same as you. And also in the office, just having those people who might be at a similar life stage to you, just being there for them and making sure that they're there for you as well. So, like, if there's anyone who joined our office who had a young child or children, it happened maybe sort of 6 to 9 months ago, someone joined the team, and I just said to her, like, if you need someone to, like, go into a meeting room and cry or scream or throw anything or just, like, listen, you can always come to me, because I've been in those situations as well. Yeah, it's a really, I don't know, it's hard, but I don't know, it's one of those things where it's obviously a very personal decision how many days you choose to work while you're balancing motherhood as well. And, I don't know, I wish it was a little bit easier, because then we wouldn't lose women. We wouldn't lose women out of the workforce, because I think it's so important that women stay working when they have kids, for a multitude of reasons. And I think it will pay off sort of down the track as well in our 40s, when we've stayed in our careers and we can progress, and yeah, we haven't had to leave the workforce or go down to working 2 days a week. It's much more beneficial in the long run.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's so admirable that you have stayed and you're in such a high position and you're balancing both. It's really
Yeah,
amazing.
I think I've just always, it's a very busy life, it's a very full life, but at the same time, I don't have a lot going on as well. And that's just by personal choice. When you have kids, especially young kids, your world becomes very small. I don't have a whole lot happening outside work and family, and that's okay for the moment. It's not like we can travel and do all those sorts of things at the moment anyway. And that's just my choice. And it's not forever as well. And
Mm.
yeah, it's much more, like I said, I think it's a much more beneficial result in the long run if you can keep your career going.
And I think also your kids grow to have a huge respect for your hard work as well. Like, I know for me, for my mum, I just
Yeah,
think, what a weapon. She's awesome.
yeah, I think it's just really, again, it's something you're passionate about, and you're teaching them that they can be passionate about things and work hard at things and achieve things. So I don't see how there can be sort of negative lessons in that. I'm really excited for this next stage. I feel like I'm ready for a little bit of a career break while I have my second child, because I'm not going to have any more kids. This is it. So I'm happy to sort of lean out for a little bit, but at the same time, I know I'm going to be so motivated to come back, and I don't know, there's just so much I'm interested in. Like, I just couldn't imagine ever giving up my career or pressing pause for an extended amount of time. It's just, I don't know. I'm just sort of person where I need all this other stuff going on, and I need to be learning constantly and growing and achieving things. So it's, I don't know. I just need that. But for people who, there are people who want different things, and that's absolutely fine as well.
Yeah, for sure. Everyone's path is different and
Yeah,
there's no wrong
totally.
or right decision. Well, last question, because I know it's been over an hour and a half. Um, so I wanted to end on a high and ask you what has been the most memorable moment in your career.
Oh my God. I think memorable moment and most epic moment, I think, was Vogue's 60th anniversary. That was a big one for me, because I'd worked on the title that year, and we'd spent sort of 6 months, leading up to on the anniversary. So not only was it putting together an issue that was 300 pages, that was like just under, like we had to measure it to the gram that it could be sent in the mail, because you can't go over a certain like weight, and it was like literally like a couple of grams under. So it was not only that, but we had the most epic party, and it was just sort of before COVID hit and the bushfires, and it was kind of like the last hurrah, and it really made you feel like that you were part of something memorable. It was like you couldn't get an invitation to this party. It was yeah, it was just not something that was open to people. And we were staff, and we were working that night, and we were making sure, I had responsibilities. I had to be the voiceover girl at the party. I forgot I got roped into that. I was like, please move to the front lawn for your next performance. And we had all these epic, Indigenous performers, because like I said, Edwina had made this commitment to Indigenous storytelling and making this commitment very publicly. And yeah, we had just amazing performers. It was just the most epic night, where we could celebrate the title and all that we had achieved and all that we wanted to do in the future. And we had Edward, the editor of Vogue UK, was out here, because we were doing some shoots with them as well. So they were our special guests. And it was just I don't know, it was like the culmination, and it was the most epic night. And it was kind of before everything went downhill with the bushfires and then COVID. So yeah, that was a moment where you're like, wow, I'm so lucky and privileged to be part of this yeah, just this amazing title and amazing team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow,
Word.
that sounds amazing. Oh, everything, listening to everything has just, I feel like working at Vogue is even better than I expected. So thank you for sharing all your insights. That was amazing.
My pleasure. Yeah, we have a lot of fun. We take I know we take our jobs very seriously and we work hard. And I guess that's what I wanted to get across as well is we love what we do, but yeah, everyone is super, super passionate and we work hard and we do it really well as a team.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast, Jess.
My pleasure. This has been lots of fun. I feel like we could talk all afternoon.
I know I could.